We're officially recording now. I want to welcome you all to this monthly forum. Outreach has really stepped up to the plate and taken on from our double nickels lunch and speaker program, and is now creating these monthly Zoom forums. And we've had some really interesting. We're very pleased to have Edward Pio with us today. And he offered to do this in December when, traditionally our stress levels are kind of high. And of course, now with everything going on in the nation and health-wise and everything, it's just, everybody, I think, across the country is fairly stressed. So with all of that, I have personally benefited greatly from Ed's teachings and his help. So I'm really so grateful to have him in our lives. And Art says he's not hearing any audio, so log out and log back in. Okay. All right. Is anyone else having any trouble? I'm going to pass it over to Ed now to begin us on this path of wisdom for stress reduction.
Good. First off, I'd ask all of you to put your audio on mute. I want to do a presentation for about 10 minutes or so, maybe 15, and then open it for questions from you individually. But I'd like to start today with a metaphor that I like to use in my classes, which is to give you an idea of your connection between, or the connection between, mind, body, and spirit. And the metaphor is to look at your physical body as a vehicle, a very expensive sports car, as a matter of fact, more expensive than anything out there. But the main thing of the vehicle is it's an autonomous vehicle. We're used to hearing for the last couple of years about autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars, and so forth. Well, you were born into the seat of this self-driving vehicle, very expensive vehicle. The vehicle itself is operated by two very wonderful supercomputers, the left hemisphere of your brain and the right hemisphere of brain. Definitely two different computers tied together at the top. The next thing is, in the back seat of this very expensive vehicle is your soul, your essence, your spirit, whatever you would like to call it. So the first thing that you need to know about this vehicle and about the supercomputers that are built into it and that are operating your life is the fight or flight response, which is one of the applications built in that you were born with. And the second most important thing that you need to know, if you don't already know it, is that you have a hard drive. And the hard drive came in relatively free of any information, and all of your entire life experiences from the time inside your mother's womb, probably at the 6-month point, to the time that you take your last breath, everything is recorded on this hard drive and available, incidentally, if you want to go back into the hard drive to, for example, what might have happened at age 5 at your birthday party or whatever it was. All of that information is available. All of that information also causes problems because in the first 7 years of your life, your nervous system is pretty well developed. Lately, there are scientists or psychologists who are saying that the nervous system continues to develop until age 25. And those folks are starting to bring warnings of our young people, our teenagers, who are using various types of drugs or staring at a screen too many hours of a day, are actually damaging their physical being because their nervous system has not been completely developed. So to go back to the other problem in our, not problem, but the other application in our computer that's called the fight or flight application, by many people today, including the physicians that I work for, consider I don't know what's going on with this. That's interesting.
Are you trying to share your screen, Ed?
No, I haven't touched
Ah,
anything at all. Okay, so going back, I had no idea what that was, but going back to the fight or flight response, which, as I said before, many health people, medical doctors, and otherwise consider what are a main problem with us today. And the fight or flight response was meant to essentially keep you alive in the days that we would walk through forests with tigers and so forth. We would, if we had to run faster to get away from the animal or whatever, we could initiate, or adrenal glands initiate, this fight or flight response, which makes us superhuman beings, at least for a very short time. So the problem is today, this fight or flight response is still in all of our, still active in all of our computers are running our vehicle. And if we don't do something about this fight or flight response, it is activated by many of our thoughts of the past. It's activated in when we go to sleep at night, in our dreams. It's activated with our thoughts during the day. We could just be sitting here perfectly comfortable, and all of a sudden, something, a sound outside or whatever, causes our fight or flight response to activate, which causes all of these massive changes in our body. And the first massive change that it causes is a reduction in our immune system and all of the different things involving our immune system. So we have to be concerned somewhat about this fight or flight response. There is no pharmacological things, no drugs that are going to be coming out to deal with that fight or flight response, to deactivate it in any way. The only mechanism that we know of today is to build a relaxation response opposite the fight or flight response. And the only mechanism that I know to do that is called meditation. There's no other way to do that other than to do meditation or focusing of the mind for a period of time, like 4 to 6 months daily. And then you will end up building a relaxation response opposite, which will deactivate essentially your thoughts while you're awake, and your thoughts in dreams while you're asleep, uh, somehow causing that fight or flight response to activate and to do all of these massive changes to your body. So, as we know, the holiday season in a normal year is already a stress reducing or stress increasing situation in our life. This particular holiday season, with the COVID, with the political situations for the last, since the election and before the election, with all of the other problems in the world, including the worldwide COVID situation. All of those have caused people to fire the flight response many, many times, and they end up creating huge amounts of anxiety. There are two forms of stress, basically: physical stress and mental stress. Most of us, particularly us older folks, have very little worry about physical stress. But mental stress, where our minds are allowed to flow freely, to worry freely, to be concerned about every little thing, what we're constantly doing is building on our anxiety, our mental stress. What we normally do, if we don't do anything about that on a daily basis, when we go to bed at night, the idea is to reduce that stress so that when we wake up the next morning, we wake up pretty much anxiety free. Now, I want to get into another, it's not a metaphor, but it's actually information from our CDC that I've taken off several years ago. I assume that it's still true. And that is that in the order of importance in our life, breathing is the number one factor in our life. As long as we can breathe oxygen and the rest of what makes up of air, we're generally okay. If we stop breathing, or if we have a plastic bag over our head or whatever it is, for 4 to 5 minutes, we are dead. So breathing is the number one most important thing that each of us as human beings need to be concerned about. During the COVID time, as you well know, oxygen and breathing is a key issue. Now, one of the things that you should know is most of us do not breathe properly. So most of us, one of the things I want to leave with you today is what I teach in my courses, which is called diaphragmatic breathing. If you've ever played a musical instrument, other than piano or percussion, for example, like trumpet, as I had for 60 some years, what happens is your lungs are really being used to fully. And it cannot be, most of us breathe very shallow, only in our chest area. Diaphragmatic breathing is where you breathe, fill your lungs up, and then push down into your abdominal area. Actually expand your lungs down into your abdominal area, which allows you maybe to hold your breath or to use your breath over a period of maybe as long as 2 minutes, where the average person is lucky if they're able to hold their breath, who normal slight breathers, if you will, hold your breath for a minute or a minute and a half and be built until it becomes impossible to do so. So those of us who have played wind instruments, who have sung in choirs, have learned many years ago to do diaphragmatic breathing. If you are one of those people who are breathing very shallowly, and incidentally, the fight or flight response, one of the things that it does is cause you to breathe very shallow. And so you huff and puff, but you're never getting enough oxygen. So before we move on, I want you to know how you can check whether you are doing a diaphragmatic breathing or not. And that is to take a large, heavy book from your bookshelf, lie down on your carpet, and put the book on your abdominal area, and keep your eyes open and take a look and take a nice deep breath. If the book is not raising up and down when you're breathing, you are not breathing diaphragmatically. And you can learn to do that by practicing lying on your back with the book and forcing yourself to take deep breaths so that the book is actually raising up instead of your chest area raising up. So that's one of the areas of stress that I want you to consider, is to start breathing more deeply. If you go outside and you breathe absolutely clean, wonderful air that we have in our area, but if you're doing it in a shallow breathing method, it's simply not giving you enough oxygen, particularly to offset the fight or flight response lack in your body. So deep breathing is one of those things that you can learn to do that will be very helpful for you during this very stressful period. The second area that you need to know about being a human is sleep. Now well, actually, the second area would be hydration. And hydration means if you don't take any kind of fluid into your physical body in 11 days, on the 11th day, you will die. That's simply it. Now, most of us get hydration from the food we eat, as opposed to the number of actual glasses of water that we drink. So one of the areas that we need to be concerned about, particularly if we start to have a headache or we start to have fever or any other action that we feel uncomfortable with, is go to the water faucet and have what is maybe 8 to 10 or 12 glasses of water a day. The more stressed you feel, the more hydration you need. Now, part of the problem with young people in this, when they're stressed, they'll go for one of the big soda drinks. Soda is not hydration. Soda, particularly those with caffeine in it, will give you some degree of hydration. But if you want to really be concerned about making sure that your vehicle is properly hydrated, the only way to do that is actual water. all of the other stuff, orange juices and all of those other things that you can have that you consider fluid are not really the best fluids available for hydration. So the next area is sleep. If you don't sleep for 11 days, you're dead. Now, most people in our Western culture do not understand that. I don't understand why our health people don't focus on that more. The CDC, if you go to our CDC, where I take off the information about sleep, you'll find out that the lack of sleep is the cause of almost every bad condition that you can have in your body. Now, if you're very young, you can sort of outlive those bad situations. Uh, but if you're up in age, then you need to be concerned about, particularly if you're living at a time right now where anxiety is a main concern in terms of your mental stress. So, number one is you got to breathe deeper. Number two, you've got to hydrate. And number three, you've got to sleep better. Now, if you are anywhere over the age of 25, you need a minimum of 8 hours of deep sleep. Now, uh, the first 4 hours of sleep is what is designated as deep sleep. That's a 4 hour time that you shouldn't be getting up to go to the bathroom or anything else. You should be completely, deeply unconscious during that 4 hour period. The second 4 hour period can be what's called REM sleep, which could have you dream. If you go to sleep, period, even 8 hours, with any kind of medication in your body, everything is a problem. You're not going to get the deep rest that I'm talking about. So if you go to sleep with as little alcohol in your system, and this is measurable, and you can find this on CDC also, with a couple of glasses of wine, let alone a couple of glasses of beer, you are not going to get that deep sleep, and you're not going to get the cellular healing that takes place in that deep sleep. You're not going to get it. You're going to feel better when you wake up the next morning, and you may have been unconscious during that first 4 hours of deep sleep, but the cellular healing that's supposed to take place during that time is not going to take place. Now, when I worked for Athena Medical Group here locally for a couple of years, I was getting medical patients from other doctors who were on Ambien CR and so forth, and other drugs to make people go to sleep, to become unconscious. And again, the fact that they are unconscious, or you are unconscious with Ambien, for example, using Ambien or some of the other drugs that are out there, does not mean that you're getting the healing that's supposed to take place during the first 4 hours of deep sleep. And so I've given lectures on deep sleep. Some of you might have attended this forum at least 2 years ago. I think I gave at our luncheon a whole presentation on sleep and why we go to sleep. So one of the things that I do at my age, and I'm now 88 years old, is if I start to feel a little bit tired, was a little bit out of I don't know how to out of alignment, my mentally and otherwise, I make sure I go to bed early. I don't take other medications. I don't take any medications, as a matter of fact. But I go to bed, like, instead of going to bed at 10, I go to bed at 9. And my intention in going to bed an hour early is not because there's no good TV shows on. My intention is to allow my physical and mental body to relax and to regenerate fully, so that when I wake up the next morning, I wake up fully healed, if you will, which is the purpose of going to bed and going to sleep. Those of you who understand the cellular makeup of our body will understand that that's why we go to sleep. We don't go to sleep only because every 24 hours because our mothers taught us that we had to do that or whatever. We go to sleep because the mechanism is made to be awake for 16 hours, to do whatever we need to do for 16 hours, and then put it completely to sleep for 8 hours. And anything short of that is going to cause health problems and anything short of going to bed without medications. Now, the problem is in our country, and the problem with many of our COVID people succumbing to COVID with immune systems that are not operating properly, is that we have a very high percentage of people who are diabetic. We have another very high percentage of people who are taking high blood pressure medication. And both the insulin and the high blood pressure medication are two things that keep us from having cellular healing in deep sleep. The medications themselves, as a side effect, keep us from doing that. So anyhow, going back to the title of this presentation today, mindfulness is a defined as living in the moment rather than our mind dreaming of the past or our mind dreaming of the future. We are going to only focus on what's happening at this particular moment. Now, going back to the vehicle as a mechanism, let me get this turned off. Forgot to turn that off. Going back to that mechanism, it's automatically built into you to go to bed and to heal. And what happens when that does not happen, the immune system and everything else shuts down to the point that viruses in your system cause you to, or bacteria, cause you to have minor infections, depending on how far down your immune system is suppressed, ranging from common cold, for example, to major problems with arthritis and with other long-term type diseases that can happen to your body, including such things as cancer and the various kinds of cancer. So it's very important that we are concerned about our immune system all the time. I know, and maybe you don't know, but if we took a swab of saliva from my mouth and sent it to a lab, probably every virus that's out there, and I'm talking now about a half a dozen cold viruses and bacteria and various other viruses in my system exist. I think it's one of my students who's having a problem. So anyhow, sorry about that. So going back to now to what we can do about our situation of stress and anxiety. I want to just recap again. We can learn to breathe properly and actually do it, not think about it, but actually do it. We can hydrate properly, which means we go back to water instead of depending entirely on fruit juices and orange juice and so forth to do it. And then we can definitely go to sleep 8 full hours, ideally without any kind of medication, without any alcohol in our system, without any pot in our system, without any other drugs in our system. And there are many of you who know if you go to a doctor about anxiety, you're going to probably tell your doctor at the same time that you don't get a good night's sleep or you have trouble going to sleep, and then you will get a prescription for your quote depression or your mental problems that supposedly is now going to make you go to sleep. And I suppose at that point, I'm not saying that you shouldn't take that, but I am saying to you that you will go to sleep. There's no question about it, but you're not going to get the cellular rest and healing that is supposed to take place during normal sleep. So that's the 3 major areas that you want to consider during this season being more stressful than others. And I'll open up now questions. It's insisting to do that. I'll open up questions. If you'd like to raise your hand and I'll call for you by name. Okay, Lucy.
Yes, Ed. I wrote down a few words, and I'd like you to maybe expound, or perhaps I might expound on a couple of them. One of
Okay.
them is fasting. I was just watching a program on fasting. What's your perspective on fasting? Thank you.
I don't have a perception on
Okay.
fasting. My everything that I focus, and I probably have a personal feeling about it, but that's not really important. I try to do the mind body um, mental connections rather than the physical. Oh, I forgot one thing about a while ago. Remember, you can breathe. If you don't breathe for 5 minutes, you're dead. If you don't hydrate for 11 days, you're dead. If you don't sleep for 11 days, you're dead. If you don't eat for 11 days, you start, for 42 days, you starve to death. So, Lucy, going back, the importance from my perception of eating or not eating, it doesn't compare to the other three.
On fasting, my perception is that it allows the body to rest. If your body is constantly under stress, it doesn't work. If you go through to all the different religions, they always have a period of fasting, be it Lent, a period of fasting, or different things. It does initiate a cleansing process throughout the whole body. And I'm not necessarily going through the apoptosis of it, but it's important too. They say just even like fast 1 day a week, or just fast maybe like 3 days a week. It actually improves one's personal health. And when your personal health is better, the whole world is healthier if you have a better body that can support your spirit, mind, and soul. The next thing is, do you ever discuss sleep hygiene to help people?
Yes, I do. I can tell you some very important rules about that a lot of people aren't following about sleep hygiene. And that is the room must be completely dark. You secondarily, it should be with ventilation that I don't say it's, it should have a decent amount of fresh air coming in. There should be no TVs. There should be no laptops. There should be no screens involved. There should not be reading in bed. I, in order to fall asleep, their sleep, you go to bed in my, again, approach. I'm not saying this is 100%, but this is what I try to get across to people. You go into a bedroom for two reasons: to make love or to sleep. You don't go in there to read until you can fall asleep. You don't go in there to watch TV until you can fall asleep. You don't go in there for a multitude other reasons other than those two reasons. And if you generally adopt that, then it helps that you don't go to bed. If, for example, in my case, there's sometimes if I had a really busy day that I will, at 9 or 10 o'clock, when I'm starting to think about going to bed, I'm still not tired. So one of the things I say is, don't go to bed if you're wide awake. Go to bed, instead of falling asleep on your chair in the living room or wherever you are, wait until you're really tired and then go to the bedroom or brush your teeth and so forth, and then go to bed. So that's my input on it. Are you still there?
Yes. Yeah. The only thing that I would like to add to what you said is that approximately an hour before you go to bed, in the olden times when we didn't have lights and things like that, we got the gradual evening experience. And it is good to don't watch the news before you go to bed, because you get ticked off and irritated and you don't have the pleasantness of your own thoughts. And to start lowering the lights as you go to bed, like an hour before, to calm yourself and to prepare yourself for the sleeping process.
I agree. I agree. Those are very good things. Any other questions? Yes, Art.
Just one more, if you don't mind. Actually, I have two more. One of them is that I absolutely agree with you on not putting anything into your stomach like 5 hours before you go to sleep, 4 hours or such. But I want your input. But people are told to take high blood pressure meds at bedtime. And the prime reason for taking that particular medication, you want to get healed, of course. Not taking them is 100% better. But if you need to take them until you get to that physical point, is that most heart attacks happen at 4 to 6 in the morning when people are beginning to awaken. And therefore, a lot of people take their high blood pressure medications at bedtime. That's just a statement of fact.
Yeah, it is. And you should know, those of you that don't know that Lucy is a pharmacist, she is correct on that. I'm not in suggesting that you should, if you
No,
have
no.
high blood pressure, you need to take your high blood pressure medication, period, end of report. I am saying, though, that I can teach you to form a meditation that will allow you to get to the point where no longer you have high blood pressure, and you can then stop taking high blood pressure medication.
Right.
Art, let's ask you for next.
Yeah, a couple. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Couple of reactions you might comment on. One is that I wouldn't totally denigrate fight or flight response in today's world. Number one, when you got a fire coming at your house, I hope you have a good fight or flight response, because otherwise you're
Well, duh.
apt to be toast, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Secondly, I think if you're driving on a lot of today's highways, you better have a reasonably tuned fight or flight response, because you don't get much chance to react.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm not saying to get rid of the fight or flight response. That is definitely needed. What I am saying is, if you want, my answer to you, Art, would be to develop a relaxation response opposite the fight or flight response, so that you are only firing it when your house is on fire or when you're on the highway and you need to react quicker, and not with your thoughts, normal thoughts. Go ahead, Art.
Also, I did a quick scan, quick reading, side reading while you were talking, and it appears as if alcohol use 4 hours or more before bedtime has very minimal, if any, effect.
Well,
That-
I can't, I'm not going to get into it.
To my best friend Yvette, you are the best partner I've ever had at work. Thank you so much for all you do. I love you.
Is there somebody else trying to get in?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Art. I'm not going to discuss that one way or the other. There's a multitude of opinions regarding alcohol helping you relax to the point where you can sleep better.
No, this isn't to the point where you can sleep better. This is simply saying don't get so anal that you don't have a glass of wine with dinner.
No, I'm not. That doesn't involve what I'm doing at all. I'm only talking about alcohol involving sleep,
Okay.
not alcohol and use and involving during the day.
And also, although your advice is to wait to go to sleep until you're tired, how do you balance that, for example, with the need to be up for an early appointment? I had to be at the doctor at 8 o'clock yesterday morning.
Use some common sense.
Yeah.
Oh, Art.
I think, I think, Art, you still need to do, let's say 6 nights of bed, okay? If you have, can you go 6 nights, 8 hours of sleep?
Probably
Yeah,
not 8, probably 7.
yeah.
Although I have seen, I'll do some more research afterwards, but some studies I thought I'd seen said that as you do age, you really don't need quite as much sleep.
I believe that that is not the case.
Okay.
I think that we need it if we're 102. We need that, even though we're not really active. What we are active on, and I think, Art, you'll agree with me on this, is, well, we're not moving that much. We physically, we are still very active mentally. And so we really kind of need to have that 8 hours of deep rest, or that 8 hours of sleep, if for no other reason to counteract the effects of a very active mind. Anyhow, any other questions? We have a large number of people here. Anybody raise their hand? Linda.
Yeah, hi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is Jan. And I was just going to suggest there is senior yoga to do. And that definitely has the deep breathing technique. And it gets you moving and your muscles kind of stretched out a little bit.
I like yoga. I don't happen to do it myself, but I think that yoga practice is a wonderful physical and mental, in many cases, depending upon the yoga that you're doing. It's a wonderful practice. Anybody else? Somebody else raised their hand a while ago. I'm viewing all this.
Well, I'll just
want.
jump in there with, you know, I totally am on board with the 8-hour thing. It is hard sometimes to like, it doesn't seem to be hard to go to sleep. It's hard to stay asleep. Like after maybe 4 hours. I mean, I often will wake up between 2 and 3 and it seems that that's kind of common. The wake up, you know, around 2, 3, and then hard to go back. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, that's due to your high level of stress, a high level of anxiety that your particular being and your particular job, Linda, is really very, very stressful. So there may be some other things that you need to do, but waking up after the first 4 hours and not being able to get to sleep is not the ideal situation. Again, the only suggestion I have for those of you who know how to do meditation is that you do need to get deep rest in meditation, which will help you then get deep rest in normal everyday sleep. That's the only solution that I know to the issue. Again, the people that I had when I worked for Athena Medical Group that were sent to me for sleep problems, and the end of 12 weeks of practice daily, they were able to get their full 8 hours of sleep without a problem. And that means they had to practice the focusing of the mind, the quieting of the mind every single day. And in the end of 10 or 12 weeks, they were able then to get excellent sleep quality. So Linda, in your particular case, if you're not doing it, my suggestion is you do at least 30 minutes of meditation in a day, formal meditation. And by the way, I'm going to give you the definition of meditation, which is really, I think most people don't understand. Meditation, from my viewpoint, is complete quiet of the mind. Now, there are a million, if there's an infinite number of guided meditations. You have all heard the terminology guided meditation. Meditation is not guided. There are such things as guided meditation. The meditation that I teach is letting your physical body go completely deep asleep while your mind stays awake, sharp, and clear and quiet. Now, if you're doing guided meditation, you are not doing regular formal meditation because your mind is active. If you're using your mind to create certain images or what I call mind movies, it's very relaxing. There's no question about it, but that is not the formal definition of meditation. Meditation is quiet, is allowing your physical body to go completely asleep while keeping your mind awake and silent. Anybody have any comments about that?
Ed, can you hear me at all? It's
Yes, I can hear you.
It's
Jay?
what I wanted to know is what do you do about some parts of every once in a while feeling so lonely that you're depressed?
Oh.
And yet you have good friends and family, but everybody is stuck at home. And here I am with Ellen's kitty cat on my lap, as you all know him. But I want to kick myself in the rear when it happens. And I do puzzles. I try and do things that I'm bored out of my gourd.
The only solution that I know about for loneliness is to be with another person.
Well,
I know, I'm not sure what the answer is for someone without immediate family.
well, see, I have,
You
but
have,
but there, and I've got all of you who I adore, but with the virus, nobody's doing what we did. So you're really kind of at home, just doing stuff, not the fun stuff like meeting people. And all of a sudden, I'm age 90, and I keep thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe God's made a mistake.
Jane, I give you one immediate solution. I will be filming at the church at 3 o'clock on Thursday afternoon,
Tomorrow,
tomorrow.
oh, I'll
And-
make cookies.
And whether or not you bring the cookies, I'm going to still physically hug you.
Okay, I'll make cookies this afternoon. That'll keep me busy. Okay.
Looking forward to seeing you tomorrow.
All right, and I get the hug. Don't forget.
Absolutely.
Okay. What time, Ed?
3 o'clock.
Okay, that'll work. It'll give me time to get my errands done.
Very good. Lucy?
Uh,
Lu-
Okay, thank you. And what people were saying, I just would like to ask you to add a couple more things to what you already know. First of all, the importance of the exposure to sun and melatonin. Also, the importance of exercise. And what about, as Jane was talking about, getting a schedule in your life for purpose and intent, or self-knowledge gaining to realize a sense of accomplishment. Could you discuss those three, please?
Yeah, well, the first two things, there's no question that we need as human beings. But the last thing that you're talking about is what I call goal setting. We all need reasons to live. And if I have, for example, if I have a new cancer patient as a student, within the first 5 minutes of my talking with that person, whether it's on Zoom or whether it's in person, the first 5 minutes, I ask the question directly, do you want to live or do you want to die? And the person will almost 100% will always say, I want to live. What a stupid question. We all want to live. And then my second question is, why? Why do you want to live? And this is part of, maybe there is an answer to Jane's loneliness, or there are many probably answers, but one of them is to answer the question, why am I alive? What do I want in my life? What do I desire? What goals do I have? Now, the older we get, the harder it is to find the goals. And I have to admit that in my particular case at 88, I still have a number of goals that I look forward to every day. And I seemingly find it. And with my students, I try to help them find reasons for living. And they can't be dumb reasons. By that, I mean, some people say, well, when I retired, I wanted to play golf 5 days a week. That's not going to work. It'll work for a couple of weeks or a month, and that's it. Or I want to go fishing 3 days a week, or I want to work in my backyard, or what. These goals must be life-changing type goals. They must be things that encourage you to get up in the morning. And they encourage you to go to bed at night and go to sleep because you want to be rested to do them the next morning. They must do that. And it's not something that happens automatically, folks. You need to, on purpose, sit down and decide what it is that you want to have happen in your life. one of the things that makes us human beings different from other animals is our ability to create, our ability to create our life, our ability to attract through the laws of attraction, however you want to experiment or explain that. But we are wonderful in creating, but we have to know what we want to create. And so goal setting is one of those things that has made business people very successful by sitting down and determining what goals that I want to accomplish in my business. So with my students, I set them down and I say, what goals do you want to accomplish only benefit you? What goals do you want to accomplish that only benefit family and relationships? And then what goals do you want to continue to do to make a living or to volunteer and that part of your life? So you need to have these goals spread out. And what happens with young mothers, for example, is their 90% of the creative ability is going into taking care of the child. So it's no wonder there's things like postpartum depression and those kinds of things, because the focus of that person's entire life is on the newborn. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but that's a fact. So what we have to gradually do is expand our will to live, expand our goals for living, and make sure that they're reasonably balanced. And then that's a good reason for us to go to bed every night and a good reason to look forward to opening our eyes the next morning. So I hope that if you're not familiar with goal setting, it's called cybernetics. It's called in movies, it's called The Secret. There's all kinds of thousands of things out there in the subject. Read up on it and make sure that you have goals set in your life. And you'll find that your life is much happier.
And
Yes.
it's Jane again.
Yeah.
When my husband died, my doctor prescribed a very 1 milligram drug to take just before I went to bed, so that hopefully I would quit redoing the whole world around me all night. And generally speaking, who's there?
Go ahead.
There you are, Ed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, it has worked for me, but during this pandemic thing, and I'm missing all of you, I've started a routine. If I can find good television, I stay up at least until 10. But you have to remember, I'm the lady with 5 cats. Now, except for Sammy, guess how many sleep with me and I can't move. And when you get to be 90, you don't sleep all night without having to visit that little room.
You know, the issue, Jane, and this is important on sleeping, the issue is not to get up because you have to visit the little room, but try not to do it in the first 4 hours of deep sleep.
Oh yeah, well, I don't.
Yeah.
I usually can hold off a little bit. But by then I have cats sleeping on my stomach, on my legs, next to me purring.
Jane, I think you have the right keys to loneliness.
Well, you can see Sammy in the picture, can't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, but Sammy will not sleep with me because he fights with the other cats. But this is how he treated Ellen before she passed away. He was always up there cuddling her. And that's why I couldn't let the family put him in the shelter.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you're doing the right thing, Jane. Hold up there, kid, until tomorrow.
Pardon?
I think Janet had a question. You'll have to unmute, Janet.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Linda. You had mentioned classes that you have. I was just wondering how to find out about your classes.
Well, I have, I'm going to give you, and I should, and Linda, if you could put this up on chat, um, go to my website, which is internationalmindbodyinstitute.org, O-R-G, internationalmindbodyinstitute.org, and read the homepage. The homepage is, has all of the information on the one course that I teach, which is a 20-week course, and all the information is there. And the opportunity to try it out at no cost is also there to find out if it's also correct for you. And I just invite you to go to that website, and all of the information that you need, you will find there about me. And if for some reason that's not sufficient, give me a call. My phone number is also there, my cell phone number, the one that keeps ringing during this.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I think, yes, anybody else? I want to thank all of you so much for being here today. We had a large crowd, and I hope if I can help any of you, please look up my phone number, give me a call. I'll be happy to talk with you at any point. Happy to visit with you.
Ed, what's your phone number? And I'll put it up right now.
831-206-0450.
0450.
And Lee, how about next week or next month?
There we go. You caught me when I was laying on my back on the floor with a book balanced on my stomach.
I didn't say anything about balance, remember? I just said up and down.
Yeah, well, I got mesmerized by the motion. In any event, next month, we've got a special person, Reg Henry, will be talking about his book, Love in the Late Edition. Reg was born and grew up in Australia, worked and lived in England, was editor of the Monterey County Herald for a number of years in the 80s, and is an award-winning syndicated columnist from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And he describes his humor as quite wry. So he suggests, and I join him, in bringing to the monthly forum next month a nice cold bottle of Guinness, so that we can all join him as he talks to us about his new book, which has got rave reviews.
I have to say, he is one of the funniest speakers I have ever heard. You will
Well,
really laugh. And
I have to interrupt. The Herald has never been the same without him. It really hasn't. He was sensational when he ran it.
And I want to interrupt and say Guinness at 12 noon is not going to affect your sleep.
that's great. I thank you so much, Ed, for leading us in this and for being available for people to call or talk to you personally. And thank you, Lucy, for adding in your information also. Anyway, thank you, everyone. And these are monthly. So the second January, Lee, is it January what date?
It's a Wednesday. It's a Wednesday in January.
Yeah, it's a Wednesday in January.
We'll send out plenty of
I'm sure that Crystal will let us know.
Yes. If you want to
And
get
I'll
onto our
see you tomorrow with cookies.
I'll see you
want to
tomorrow.
get onto our e-news and you're not on it, please let us know. I'm just putting in my phone number there in case you need to let us know. You want to be on the e-news. Bye-bye.
Love
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
you. Love you.
Love you, Jane.
Thank you
Take
so
care.